Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, the UN General Assembly will be opening very soon, and it was expected to be quite a big event because it was expected that French President Macron and then British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and I think the Australian Prime Minister Albanese
And
uh,
Canadian
and the
carrier?
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney were going to announce that they finally decided to recognize a Palestinian state. The United States, and of course Israel, or rather one should say Israel and its junior partner, the United States, have been filled with rage over this event and have been issuing all manner of threats. You know, we discussed before about the threats they've issued against Macron. Um, and so the United States decided, well, one way to deal with this problem is simply not allow the Palestinians to come to the UN General Assembly, even though they have observer status at the UN. They said, well, you can't come. And so I'm not sure how that's going to, stop Macron and the rest from recognizing Palestine. But they said that that's it. Mahmoud Abbas, the 89-year-old president of the Palestinian Authority, he's not coming, which is very interesting because, of course, Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority have been talked about by everybody, by France, the United Arab Emirates, the Saudi Arabia, and everybody as the future leader of a kind of the joint state, but of course a future leader of Gaza, because they all agreed Hamas must never again be allowed to rule over Gaza, so power must be given to Mahmoud Abbas. And so it's not entirely coincidental that the US-Israeli response to that, since that's the plan to have Abbas rule over Gaza, is to say, you're not coming. We don't want you here. Marco Rubio issued this.
Yeah,
Um,
little Marco. There you go. Small-minded, petty
yes,
Marco Rubio.
that's right. And here we have Trump administration reaffirms commitment to not reward terrorism and revokes visas of Palestinians officials ahead of the
Yeah,
UNGA.
but what does the PLO have to do with Hamas?
None. They fought a war. I mean,
They fought a war, everybody. The PLO killed Hamas. Hamas killed PLO. It was dirty. It was nasty.
it was nasty. But keep in mind, Hamas won that election. I mean, the PLO kind of fought a war to stay in power. I mean, Hamas won the election throughout. I mean, there was a West Bank and Gaza. Hamas won hands down in both.
In both. And,
Yes.
and remember, everyone, Hillary Clinton had the U.S. State Department um, uh, um, sponsor that election. That was an American paid for election, which Hamas won.
Hamas won, but of course, the PLO wasn't going to hand over to power of
Oh,
Hamas, so they fought a war. You know, the PLO stayed in the West Bank, but Hamas took over in Gaza. But by the way, but I mean, they for some reason they're blaming the terrorism on Mahmoud Abbas. And so and then here we have, in accordance with U.S. law, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is denying and revoking visas from members of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Palestinian Authority ahead of the upcoming United Nations General Assembly. The Trump administration has been clear it is in our national security interest to hold the PLO and the Palestinian Authority accountable for not complying with their commitments and for undermining the prospects
that's
of peace.
really rich. Okay. They're not honoring their commitments. Oh, okay.
It is, but of course, it's very striking that they're doing this at the time when the French and the Saudis and all kind of respectable pro peace and are all embracing Mahmoud Abbas and saying, yes, you must be the president of the future Palestinian state, including Gaza. So that, they're all in very warm correspondence, and the Americans come in and say, "Oh, no, you're not even coming to the UN General Assembly." So, and then before the PLO and the Palestinian Authority can be considered partners for peace, like the United States is our partner for peace, they must.
So, and this is in light of what, 4 decades of so-called peace process,
Peace,
George?
yeah, yeah, that's right. They must consistently repudiate terrorism, including the October the 7th massacre, and end incitement to terrorism in education as required by US law and as promised by the PLO.
The PLO condemned the October 7th
They did
attacks.
indeed. They did. We're going to take a look at that and say that they have condemned it. So it's totally untrue what they're saying here. The Palestinian Authority must also end its attempts to bypass negotiations through international lawfare campaigns, including appeals to the ICC and ICJ. They must end. So they're telling them,
Because
hey,
then, oh my God, because they can't do it any other way. This is their avenue. Okay. I mean, that's one thing I give resistance movements, use lawfare because it's been used against you.
right,
Okay.
right, right. But it's interesting. I mean, how you tell a sovereign entity, because after all, they are sovereign in this whatever it is consists of Palestine, and you're telling them you must stop going to these courts. But everyone's entitled to go to before the International Court of Justice. If they weren't, the International Court of Justice would have told them, "Hey, you don't have any standing. Sorry, we can't hear your case." But instead, the International Court of Justice is hearing their case, as is, the International Criminal Court, which we don't think much of, but nonetheless, the International Criminal Court accepts that the Palestinians are a party to the Rome Statute. And efforts to secure the unilateral recognition of a conjectural Palestinian state. Why can't they go around securing a
Oh,
unilateral recognition?
how is it by going to the ICC and the ICJ, by definition, it means it's not unilateral.
Yes.
That's antithetical. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, apparently they're supposed to ask Israel's permission, and Israel, of course, is likely to grant them their permission. If you ask them nicely, can we please have a Palestinian state? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Where would you like to have this Palestinian state? So,
Unilateral
well,
recognition.
that's what do they mean by unilateral, other than
And what is it? Oh, it's 186 countries in the UN already recognized. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's unilateral?
yeah.
No, it means against the wishes of the United States and Israel. That's what
Exactly. That's what they mean by unilateral. That somehow you are not asking the permission of Israel. You have to ask it. You have to ask the permission of Israel. And both steps materially contributed to Hamas's refusal to release its hostages and to the breakdown of the Gaza ceasefire
no, that's
talks.
not true at all. That's a red herring. That has nothing to do with
Not
this.
nothing whatever, because we know why those ceasefire talks broke down. I mean, it's it's not a mystery. They weren't just going to release the hostages and allow Israel to invade Gaza. It was only as part of a peace process. And
No, they
incidentally,
wanted them to keep the hostages so they could invade Gaza.
exactly. And one has to say, and one should mention, I mean, it's not dispositive. Hamas did offer to give up the hostages in exchange for Israel not to invade Gaza. Now, okay, Israel said, well, you invaded us, we're going to invade you, so fine. But nonetheless, Hamas did make that offer that we will release all of the hostages in exchange for your not invading Gaza. Um,
And so all the hostages will die and the invasion will kill countless people. Okay.
exactly, including the hostages, whatever
Including the
hostages are
hostages.
there. Yeah.
Including the
Um, so basically, they're making all of these ludicrous assertions that somehow Macron is responsible for the breakdown of the ceasefire in Gaza.
Keep in mind, everyone, I certainly don't put myself on the same level of Norman Finkelstein or Max Blumenthal and other luminaries that have studied this issue for decades. I'm very interested in this. I'll follow it very carefully. But I mean, George and I can shoot every single sentence into
Oh,
smithereens here. Okay? I mean, this is how flimsy it is.
Yes, it is.
And cowardly. And cowardly.
Cowardly, yeah. You can almost hear the words of, and I think she's still there, Tammy Bruce. You know, this is the
No,
committee.
I think they bumped her, didn't they bump her? Oh, shit, we could see her this week at the General
But
Assembly.
yes, but I think she's still at the State Department. I don't think
Oh
she's
my
get,
goodness. Oh God.
um, but I mean, that's a job that you need to be confirmed. I mean, she has to be confirmed to that
Oh, this,
position.
Tammy Bruce, you will have countless YouTube anthologies of your disgrace. And is this going to be your finale this week? Really? Go for it. Go for it.
Um, and but the Palestinian Authority mission to the UN will receive waivers per the UN headquarters agreement. The United States remains open to re-engagement that is consistent with our laws. Should the Palestinian Authority (PLO) meet their obligations, we don't even know what those obligations are, and demonstrably take concrete steps to return to the constructive path of compromise and peaceful coexistence with the state of Israel.
No, that means you surrender on all counts. That's all that means.
But it's very, very interesting because, um, I mean, obviously, the United States is completely abusing
Yes.
its standing as the host of the United Nations. The United States, had promised, it was, absolutely stipulated that you're not going to do stuff like this, so that people will be, come in representing their countries at the United Nations. That is just, yeah, that therefore it's not like you can close down embassies or kick out diplomats. You don't have any jurisdiction over the United Nations. That's the point. The United States has no jurisdiction over the United Nations. But they did that with Yasser Arafat back in 1988, and then the UN, in response, met in Geneva in order to listen to Yasser Arafat. I mean, I think the UN should do the same now. I mean, I think that this is such an obvious insult to the UN that you can't just simply let this go. Okay, well, no, that's too bad. This is Mahmoud Abbas. This is the one that everybody is, treats with great respect and treats as an elder statesman, as the bona fide, whether he is or not, he's the bona fide leader of the Palestinians. This is the person This isn't even Yasser Arafat. At least Arafat had a background where you can at least say, well, he was resorting to violence. That isn't true about Mahmoud Abbas. He's been nothing if not, conciliatory and
No,
uh, and
he's a capo. That's what he is.
right.
Okay.
But he's worked with the Israelis despite every humiliation. I mean, it's humiliation. I mean, they're building these settlements, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you zoom out and you look at all of this, so France, the UK, Australia, Canada, yeah. We recognize Palestinian statehood and full membership of the United Nations, just as well. Any possible Palestinian state is a glimmer now. It's almost just it's only, and it basically resides in your imagination.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because Gaza, it's just a geographical location right
Right,
now.
right. That's right.
Okay.
But what they
And if you look at the settlements, every American, oh, was it Alan Dershowitz said, oh yeah, the settlements, that's problematic. Yeah,
yes, that's
wait a
right.
minute.
Yeah,
What's
I was against the settlements.
God,
I mean,
what a shameful thing. Yeah, so what it's called E1 or is it E3?
E3, I think. Yeah.
E3. And so basically it's just smatterings of Palestinian communities.
Well, that's it. What they intend to do, of course, is basically to annex this territory. Then and make. I mean, it's already effectively a part of Israel. I mean, that it's linked to Israel. It's directly linked to Israel through transport and everything else. So it's obviously preliminary to its annexation. Now, but the thing is, what Israel and the United States do, but mostly Israel, is that whenever there is a movement toward some kind of international, I don't know, recognition of Palestinian statehood, however dim that prospect may be, they make this move to show no, you have no, there's no legitimacy. I mean, when the Israelis invaded Lebanon in 1982, that was directly in response to the PLO basically saying we accept the state of Israel. We're giving up our armed struggle. We basically accept the state of Israel. And the moment they did that, the moment it seemed as though, oh, the PLO might now be accepted as what they obviously are, the leaders of the Palestinian people. Boom, they make them invade Lebanon and come up with a cockamamie
No, no,
story.
no, no. You're not going. No, no, no. We don't accept your recognition. No, no,
No, no,
no.
no, no, no. We absolutely do not. And then that was so. They always do this. This is exactly all Israeli practice. And there's the United States doing it now. As I said, here is just the evidence that, of course, the Palestinian Authority did not support what Hamas did on October the 7th. Abbas calls Hamas sons of dogs and demands release of
I
Gaza
think in
hostages.
any language that's pretty insulting. Okay.
I think so. And it's got Mahmoud Abbas has called Hamas sons of dogs in a fiery speech in which he demanded the group release the hostages it is still holding, disarm, and hand over control of Gaza in order to end the war with Israel. The president of the Palestinian Authority told a meeting in the occupied West Bank that Hamas had given Israel excuses to continue its attacks on Gaza and told it to release the hostages and be done with it. And then it goes on. Abbas lashed out at Hamas in a furious speech to a meeting of the Palestinian Central Council in Ramallah. Hamas has given the criminal occupation of Israel excuses to commit its crimes in the Gaza Strip, the most prominent being the holding of hostages. Sons of dogs, just release whoever you're holding and be done with it. Shut down their excuses and spare us. And then this is Times of Israel. And then it says, in first, Palestinian authorities, Abbas condemns Hamas October the 7th attack. And so the Palestinian Authority president issues criticism in letter to Saudi and French leaders ahead of UN confab they're hosting next week, aimed at boosting prospects for a two-state solution. And then again, Abbas condemned Hamas's October the 7th attack for the first time on Tuesday, while reiterating his call for the terror group to release the remaining hostages. What Hamas did in October 2023 in killing and taking civilian hostage is unacceptable and condemnable, and Hamas must immediately release all hostages, Abbas wrote in a letter to Macron and MBS. And then it goes on, while Abbas has long rejected violence as a means of advancing Palestinian self-determination, he has refrained from specifically publicly condemning Hamas's actions on October the 7th, with at least one of his aides arguing that he wouldn't do so while Israel's wide-scale offensive in Gaza was ongoing. But Abbas is also looking to gain support from the international community so that the Palestinian Authority can replace Hamas as the governing authority in Gaza. And Abbas' letter also outlined the main steps that he thinks must be taken to end the war in Gaza and achieve peace in the Middle East. Hamas will no longer rule Gaza, must hand over its weapons and military capabilities to the Palestinian security forces. He said he was ready to invite Arab and international forces to be deployed as part of a stabilization protection mission with a UN Security Council mandate, which is very nice, except that, of course, Israel will have nothing to do with that, and so that all sounds excellent. Macron says, "Yeah, I'm down for that." Starmer, "Yeah, I'm good." Albanese, "Yep, great." It doesn't matter. Israel isn't going to put up with any of that. The United States won't do
Yeah,
so.
well, again, the French, the British, the Canadians, and the Australians, you don't get any points. You haven't
Yeah,
earned any points.
yeah,
Okay,
I agree.
at the very last second, you want to get ahead of the parade. Okay, shame on you people. You're just cowards. It was really interesting what happened in the last few days with Australia. Yeah, they're condemning Iran, okay? And it's like they're pleading, there's special pleading, okay? We're going to recognize the state of Palestine, but we condemn Iran. Is that good enough? Is that good enough for you? It's so shameful.
Right,
It's
right.
so, Shameful.
Well, tomorrow we'll talk a little more about Iran and what the Western powers are now doing with their snapback, total dishonesty. Um, but what is interesting here is this business of demanding that he condemn. He demanded he condemn. This is kind of Piers Morgan. This is
I was just going to say, we're doing the Piers Morgan Act now? Okay.
he's saying Israel is killing our people, killing, how many people does it kill a day? I mean, the numbers, what on average, how many people? We can easily do it. It's not difficult to do the sums. It's been at least, whatever, 65,000, divided by the number of days it's been going, then we'll tell how many kills a day, how many kills per hour. So you expect me to start talking about Hamas while you're doing this to my people, the people I represent. I mean, how can you do that? I mean, so with Piers Morgan, it's like it's if he had the guts, he could go to Gaza. He'd probably be interviewing people being burnt alive in a tent and says, "Yeah, but do you condemn? Before you go, I mean, would you condemn Hamas?" And then I can feel sorry for you. Yeah, sorry you lost your children, but what do you condemn Hamas's attack?
Well, it's always obviously a strategy of not taking any responsibility for Western governments in the pursuit of their policy protecting genocidal behavior of Israel. Okay, somebody has to be at fault. It's not me.
No,
Not me. I'm not at fault.
no,
Okay.
no.
I mean, Piers Morgan and all the rest of you, Barry Weiss, all of this is recorded. Everything is for posterity. This will be the most researched humanitarian catastrophe in history. You know why? Because we have so much material. This will go on for decades. Okay. Day by day, hour by hour. It's all recorded.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
What the Nazis did, they tried to hide it. It took intrepid journalists and historians. Remember William R. Shire? He was the first one to come out with the what was it? What was it
The
called?
rise and fall of the Third
The
Reich.
Rise and Fall of the. I was very. I read that. I read that when I was like 12.
It's a,
Okay.
it's a good read, but
I said journalist
yeah,
first.
it's a
Okay.
journalist. I mean, I mean, he was first out of the gate. He wrote that, and it was a huge international bestseller. But
Huge.
all of it has now been, no one takes it serious as a work of history anymore. But he was first out of the gate, and everybody read it. Yeah, it was very
That
well
was a
done.
paperback. Remember?
That's right. But it was a good read. I mean, he knew how to write entertainingly. Um,
He was there actually too. So I mean, I it was a good first out of the gate book, okay? But history, the real historians have done an amazing job. But you had to dig and you had to go, you had to spend time, go to archives. The Soviets had archives, the Americans had, everybody, had bits and drabs and all of that, and all putting it together. This is on display. All you need is an internet account and a computer.
right.
You could do it yourself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, I mean, I think it's so disgusting, this Piers Morgan thing, because you got to say, look, just knock it off with this. Do you condemn Hamas? As if that you have to, in order to be able to say anything about what Israel is doing, you have to first, do your penance, well, like, as if he's the priest. But do you,
Well,
now do
George,
you renounce
you
the devil? Yeah,
remember.
I renounce the devil.
You remember as well as I do when we were coming up in particularly like in the 70s and the 80s, if um, uh, Brezhnev came out with something or Honecker or Gomulka or whatever. Well, as Marx said in 1874 in his article, they always had to genuflect. You have to genuflect,
Right.
okay, before you can start talking about something. It could be about agriculture, but as Lenin said in 1922,
Right.
all these articles, they always started
Well,
that
that's it,
way.
but it's more. I mean, it reminds me more when, let's say, during the Vietnam War, and people would criticize American policy in Vietnam, and then the favorite argument against that, yeah, but what about the Soviet Union in Czechoslovakia? Do you condemn that? And then, so, as if so, well, do you condemn that? Well, we're not talking about Czechoslovakia. Well, if you don't condemn Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, then you have no right to talk about Vietnam. It was a
And
classic,
and
ridiculous
and thus
argument.
thus spawned the great academic activity called whataboutism.
Exactly, exactly. So, but it's so despicable to go on doing this. This is now almost 2 years. It will soon be 2 years, and and given just the sheer scale of the horror, and then you say, oh well, but what about October the 7th? Do you condemn October the 7th? I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And Piers Morgan thinks that he can just go on playing this little game forever.
I condemn the stupidity of Piers
I
Morgan.
condemn, exactly. Do you condemn Piers Morgan? I do. I
I
condemn.
condemn Piers Morgan. We should start this. We should start this on Twitter, okay? Do you condemn Piers Morgan?
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And if you're not, you're an apologist for genocide or whatever their logic is, okay? Barry Weiss is going to make what, $250 million?
Now, yes. Now, I still don't understand the economics of that. I mean, she can't be
I,
making a lot of money on this
the free
news side of
press
hers.
is worthless.
Yeah,
It's a worthless. It's
it's
worthless.
worthless. But she's making a huge amount of money, and she's now going to be obviously involved in CBS's Middle East coverage. I mean, that's part of the deal. She's obviously going to be,
Well,
in charge of that coverage.
to people involved in this merger, it's not a done deal. Okay, it's huge. It's a huge. It's a consolidation, oligarchy. Okay, but I would say to the people behind this merger, just take a second, maybe read the room. Read the room. Okay, because this is not what people are. George and I, we try to be as balanced as we can. We get very emotional about these things here, but look at your audience and take them seriously. Because if you're just going to shove down, what CBS, they own the current iteration of Star Trek, and considering the last iteration of Star Trek that was so it choked you with its wokeness. It was just unbelievably bad. Okay. The new iteration, which I love, because it takes a poke at itself. It doesn't take itself so seriously. And if you're going to turn everything, all the bad guys into Hamas and all the good guys to Israelis, you're going to lose your audience, okay? So have a little bit more respect for your audience. But I mean, $250 million. I mean, I've looked at people looking at the valuation of the free press. It's worthless.
It's
There's no
worthless.
value there.
It's worthless. And that is what's just so bizarre. I mean, it's entirely is driven by an agenda. It's wholly an agenda.
It's all.
Nobody, no, in other words, it has no wide readership except that it's taken seriously in the media. And the media, they pay attention to it. There's if Barry Weiss's views on anything matter. I found out the other day that Jerry Seinfeld's daughter works on Barry Weiss's outlet. So there was, that's Jerry Seinfeld getting his daughter
Yeah,
launched in that
the same
commercial.
Seinfeld that is estimated to be worth $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I mean, this is just a political agenda. Like I said, read the room. Read the room. All right.
yeah.
But I haven't stopped criticizing Marco Rubio. Um, Marco, you desperately, despite your shortness and height, which is a real disadvantage for you, man, because short men don't do well in politics. Okay.
You can't be president if you're
You
if you
can't be, you're too
an
short.
American president has to be taller than.
You can't be president, Marco.
Yeah,
You can't be you're too short.
yeah,
Okay. And you look like you're 12.
yeah.
Okay. So, but when you run for president, this is going to, people are going to tag this on to you. Okay. This stuff isn't going away. All right. It's not. And looking at public opinion polls, Marco, do you think this is really a good move? I mean, for you personally, okay?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, because it's still. I'd say that before we kind of rush and say we know how the public opinion is going to go. I mean, among the Republicans,
Fair.
yes, there've been certain breaking of the ranks, but it's so far it's been limited to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, whose career I think seems at the moment seems to be over. Among the Democrats, I think it's different. I think there's movement. So before we sort of write the sort of obituary of the Israel lobby in the United States, you've got to be careful. It's a very powerful
Good
lobby,
point,
powerful
George.
organization, and they still can still make and break politicians.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and public opinion polls tell us that, okay? When you have the majority of Democrats and then you have a plurality of young Republicans coming out against this, and it doesn't reflect policy among their elites. Yeah, why? That's because of the lobby.
Right.
That's because of the lobby, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, money is the poison of politics,
Yes.
and they got plenty of it.
That, yeah,
Okay,
that's
and other forms of
it's exactly.
inducement.
So it's like, yes, you're absolutely right, because young people absolutely have turned off about Israel. But if AIPAC can go in with huge amounts of money, buy a lot of advertising against the candidate, and not even bring up the subject of Israel, stay away from the subject of Israel, just bring up anything else. Oh, he voted against Trump. He wasn't sufficiently MAGA. Just throw a huge amount of money, he's going to lose, and then you get your guy in, and you can do it just without even bringing up the subject of Israel.
George is on. That's such a very, very important point because if they go with the Israel issue, it's going to turn a lot of people off. But if you voted against Trump on this, that is more salient for
Exactly. So, oh yeah,
people.
well, he's not MAGA. I can't vote for somebody who's insufficiently
Yeah,
MAGA.
but you have at the same time. Netanyahu, I think, was speaking to it was maybe Israeli media, but he was in an interview recently, and he defined for Trump supporters what MAGA means. Now that's going to get translated, and it's going to be passed around and whatnot, and there's going to be even more people say, "Well, why should you decide? What do you have to do with us?"
Yeah,
Okay, it's more poison on poison. Okay, but George is right. Always take a step back.
yeah.
This is the most powerful lobby, or one of the most powerful lobbies in the history of American politics, and they're not out of the game, not by
And they have a lot of
much.
money. They have a lot of money to play with, and that's the key, because there are a lot of very, very rich people who will go on funding every kind of cause that is seen to be they'll be funding, trying to destroy any cause that they think is detrimental to Israel. All of those various figures who suddenly came and supported Trump because on the subject of Israel, those hedge fund guys and everything else. So I mean, these people still have a lot of influence.
Yeah,
Whether
and that
some
doesn't mean.
politicians move away,
And it doesn't mean they're going to, throw a a billion bucks against Marjorie Taylor Greene. They'll probably just leave her alone. Okay, Massey as well, because that's just going to get people's, anger up. Okay, that's going to get their blood pressure up. Is we will decide who represents us. But all these other candidates, no, that in other primaries. No, if you're weak and you're a purple state and you came in with a 3-point edge, you're going to play ball,
yeah.
play ball.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly, and that's what Macron. We had Netanyahu who kind of wrote a letter, an open letter to Macron, and said Macron isn't doing enough to combat anti-Semitism in France.
And then Jared Kushner's
And then
father
Jared Kushner's
chimed in.
dad also wrote this letter. And then Macron wrote this long, long, weaselly letter. Oh, that isn't true. I've been, from the very first day in office, I've done my very best to fight against anti-Semitism.
Yeah, and it was his wife grabbing his head, swiveling fool.
It was so
They know things. Get my drift? They know things. That's a
so
joke, everyone.
yeah,
That's a joke.
it's a joke, a joke. But that's it. So if that's the best you can do, you write this weaselly apologetic. No, I accepted the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. I made that mandatory in the French education system. Don't call me anti-Semitic, please, please.
Why this little man in France that came from finance believes that he can fill the shoes of Charles de Gaulle is a mystery to me. Charles de Gaulle would have just,
Yes. It's not Charles de Gaulle. Well, we don't have to go into that. He spoke out very harshly against Israel. And I think famously said, Jews have always been an arrogant people. He was attacked for saying that, obviously, but he said, "What do I care? I mean, Israel attacks me. Who's Israel? Who am I?"
look at the entirety, not that just one remark. You can debate it all you want. That's fine. That's why we have debate. But if you look at the entirety of that man's political career, he will be remembered longer and more thoroughly than most people that we think were, wow, important people of the 20th century. This guy's going to transcend.
That's right.
He's going to transcend. This is how important this man is. Okay, Americans that were all brought up to make fun of the French and stuff like that. That's just cheap culture. Well, this man was stature, had stature, and
And I think
very few people did in the 20th century.
the French were kind of pretty disgusting in that they kind of started cooperating with Israel on the nuclear to help them build a nuclear weapon, building that Dimona reactor. It was the French. De Gaulle ended it. De Gaulle ended that cooperation. By then, I think it was already too late. But nonetheless, it is to the credit of de Gaulle that he ended France's cooperation on Dimona.
Yeah, but there were plenty of Americans that were full
Oh,
throttle.
yeah, of course.
I mean, and no treason there. No, no, no.
Exactly.
They that's so extraordinary.
Yes.
People that go to prison for a tree. Remember that guy that took pictures on his submarine and he sent it out? And I mean, it was just like quarters and,
I went,
how
yeah, yeah.
you live underwater for 3 months, like this is how we do. How do you live underwater for 3 months? Well,
Right,
this is where the mess hall is, and this is where the library is, and this is where we can smoke cigarettes. He's in prison.
right,
He's in prison. But the Americans that gave nuclear secrets to Israel, they're celebrated.
right, right. Yeah.
Marco Rubio, this is such a shameful mark against America in an area where there is so much shame and so much shame to be shared. But you're going to be remembered for this, okay? And you might think, I always overreact to these things. The world is watching, everyone. The world is what, and there are two countries that are stopping all of this. That's what the world sees.
I wonder, I guess Mahmoud Abbas would probably still be able to address the General Assembly via video link. So I mean,
Don't need a visa.
I mean, he can still do it. I mean, the Americans can't stop that. So I think he probably will address the General Assembly. So
Well, they should have, yeah, forget Abbas. I could care less about it. They should have Muin, what's his name? Um, Muin, everybody help me here. He's a colleague of Norman Finkelstein. Um, I've been watching him lately. He's amazing. One of the most articulate people on the Palestine Israel problem. Muin Rabbani. Check him out. Check him out. Okay, easy name even for me to spell. All right, we'll get it. This is a big week coming up. George and I are going to cover it here. I fully expect even more shameful thing. What I'm thinking about doing is, and I'm all seriousness, I may do this evening, is take a picture of a chair. Just go to the internet, chair image, please. Take it, and then I'm going to put it on my account and say, this is a chair for the Palestinian people in the United Nations General Assembly. Everybody give these people a chair. Okay?
Yep.
It should be done. It should
Yep.
be done. All right, everybody. Again, to be continued because it opens up Monday, Tuesday.
I can't remember. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
All righty. All righty. This is part of our Sunday rundown. This is part 2 of 3 at least. We're going to do our live stream tomorrow, 10 o'clock Eastern time.
That's right.
Be there. Required viewing. The boys will be there, monitoring and auditing the tip jar.
Exactly. That's the thing. So 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow for our joint live stream, and then Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And then you got to think about these dogs. You know, they're sort of sitting there. Well, it's getting a little cold now. The tip jar isn't sort of adding any heat to this to our way of life, and so we need changes. We need drastic changes. So they're calling for a radical reform program, and which is big money dumped, lock, stock, and barrel. So stuff it in.
They
It's
need a
hard.
chair too. They need
They
their
need
own.
they need a chair, one chair per dog. So if you have anything lying around, straight into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, well, you know what? You gotta keep those dogs happy, otherwise things look grim. Uh, so remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.